On the minds of many is healthcare and how the Senate runoffs can influence it in the future. And they're sounding off on social media. Holly tweets, "No one can afford the deductible with Obamacare." And Peter says Senator Perdue has voted numerous times to strike down protections for Georgians with pre-existing conditions. So what policies do our U.S. Senate candidates actually support? Does Democratic hopefuls Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock have a plan to make public health care more affordable than the Affordable Care Act? And when it comes to the Republican senators, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, do they have a plan to include people with pre-existing health care conditions? Let's verify. To find out where the Senate hopefuls stand, we went to these sources. Government website, healthcare.gov, orthopedic surgeon specialist Dr. Scott Barbour for some real-world perspective, the fine print on the campaign websites of all 4 Senate candidates, and congressional voting records. For the Democratic candidates, let's begin with the current Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. According to healthcare.gov, in a nutshell, ACA law has 3 primary goals: make affordable health care insurance available to those living in poverty, expand the Medicaid program for some of those same families in certain states, and support medical care delivery methods designed to lower the costs of health care. Republicans have argued the Affordable Care Act is too expensive for the average American, alleging increased premiums, deductibles, and substandard care.
The Democrat Party is pushing a socialist nightmare.
I'm absolutely terrified that the government is going to do a complete takeover of healthcare.
Dr. Scott Barbour is an orthopedic surgeon specialist at Emory in Atlanta, and he says the ACA is costly. And like most Republicans, he believes free market competition is more cost-effective for patients.
What we want to see is a restoration of the doctor-patient relationship, and that is promoted by free market competition.
So what are Ossoff's and Warnock's plans to make Obamacare more affordable? Ossoff says his health insurance option reduces any concerning cost. He would, quote, offer Georgians an optional, not-for-profit alternative to private insurance. And then he goes on to say, more choice increases competition in the health insurance marketplace and lowers costs, forcing private insurers to compete with a public plan on quality and price. Reverend Warnock also says more needs to be done to reduce Affordable Care Act cost. On his campaign website, he says he supports legislation to lower the cost of prescription drugs, including legislation to authorize the federal government to negotiate with drug companies to bring down prices. So do Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock have a plan to make public health care more affordable? Well, we can verify this claim is true, but these are just campaign promises for now.
Don't believe the liberal lies. Kelly Loeffler always puts Georgia first.
The biggest criticism of Republicans is their position on pre-existing conditions and health care.
Health insurance should always cover pre-existing conditions for anyone, period. Unfortunately, some people want to play political games with this.
In Perdue's 5-year tenure as a U.S. Senator, he has voted to repeal and replace the ACA, but the legislation failed in the House in 2017. Loeffler is also an opponent of the Affordable Care Act. Just last month, Senator Perdue and Loeffler introduced a joint health care resolution for Georgians, which includes their position on pre-existing conditions. It discusses the need for protections of individuals with pre-existing conditions, lowering the cost for prescription drugs and devices, insurance premiums, and other safeguards. How the plan will be implemented is unclear as the Democratic challengers dispute the details of their proposal, but we can verify this claim is true. Loeffler and Perdue are proposing a plan that does include coverage for people with pre-existing health care conditions. Every night on Up Late, we're going to verify claims to separate fact from fiction. If you have something you want us to look into, just let us know through our Facebook page, Twitter, or email.